Hello, my name is Grant Gayo, and my group mates are Parker Penrose and August Stein. This is our process improvement project, and we observed the time to fill a study spot in PFT. As students on LSU's campus and faculty know, Patrick F. Taylor is one of the largest engineering buildings on LSU's campus, and students often spend a significant amount of time searching for a study spot. As a group, we decided to calculate how long it takes to fill a study spot on each of the 3 floors between different time intervals through different days.
Finding a place to study sounds simple, but for many LSU students, especially in the PFT building, it's a daily challenge. During the busiest hours, usually between 12 p.m. and 3 p.m., students walk floor to floor searching for an open spot. This struggle doesn't waste time, but it also reduces productivity and adds stress, and can make it harder for students to manage their schedules effectively. Well, because of this issue, our progress focuses on the central question: how long does it actually take for LSU students to fill an open spot in the PFT? We wanted to determine which floors fill the fastest and where students spend their most time searching for an open spot.
Students at PFT often struggle to find available study spaces during busy hours, especially. And that reduces productivity for the students and it complicates their time management. This study aims to determine how long it takes for LSU students to fill an empty study spot and which floors experience the longest fill times to understand where improvements are most needed, whether that be different chairs, different setups, or different recommendations for students on different floors. Now, we know that the building is not in our control, so we will take that into account later. Now, getting into the background more, there's more reasons for people to study at PFT, not just the size. With that becomes various study spaces, proximity to classrooms, proximity to parking, multiple vending machines with different items, and a restaurant, Panera Bread. We chose to study the first floor atrium tables, which is give or take 30 seats, about 30 seats. The third and second floor study tables, which is about 15 seats individually. And our sample size is the observed LSU students in PFT, and we observed in 1 hour increments, or 1 hour periods, from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. on October 20th to 24th. The typical trends that we observed before starting the test was that the higher the floor, the higher chance of finding a spot. Now, that may be because of laziness for students or the fact that other floors were more available at different times. And that is a fully random assumption too. That is just a very background basic assumption. But we also did know, it was very evident, that during lunchtime, PFT is packed and filled to the brim. Now we're getting more into our data. You'll see 2 graphs, students versus time filling a spot, and students versus time filling a spot without the first floor. We discovered that without the first floor, on average, it's taking students more time to fill a spot. What that means is that the spots up top are empty for longer than the spots on the first floor. So if you wanted to have the assurance that you were going to find a spot, the higher that you go, the second floor, the third floor, the higher is more assurance that you're going to find that floor. And we got that data by doing a time study procedure. So we would find occupied seats. Then, when that seat becomes empty, we start a timer. When the seat is then filled, we end the timer. We observed that the first 4 atrium tables fill faster in almost every single study instance. And the third and second floor study tables fill slower than the first floor. The closer to 12 p.m., which is we're calling lunchtime, the busier PFT was. And of course, the busier it is, the more people, the more spots are being taken up. other observations that we made is that students often left an empty spot between them. What I mean by that is that, let's say you were sitting in a, just take a classroom setting or a dinner table, and there's an empty chair to the right and an empty chair to the left. Students would see that at a different study location, and they will pass that student. They will not fill that empty spot. It's more of like a social distancing, or maybe that's a shyness or something about the student, but it's more socially acceptable to give people their space. Now, if you were at PFT during the week of the 20th to the 24th, you notice that October 24th was the busiest day of the entire study. There was, I believe, 2 to 3 exams that day for multiple engineering majors, and that's, of course, why it was busy.
But while students are waiting or struggling to find a spot, what alternatives do they have? Well, one is to head over to the library. The library has more seating, but it's not always convenient. It can be a long walk, especially between classes and during exam weeks. Another alternative is to study at home, whether that's an apartment or a dorm. But many students can't focus as well as at home. There are distractions, noises, and temptation to relax instead of work. Being on campus also keeps students in that productive mindset. Students can also book a study room, which guarantees a space, but those rooms go fast. My experience with that is every time I try to book one, normally they're always full. And many require reservations days in advance, which doesn't help someone that needs to study between classes or prepare for a last-minute quiz. And of course, some students end up taking a study break entirely, not only because they want to, but because they can't find a place to settle down. This can put them behind academically and then adds to unnecessary stress. Despite all these options, many students still choose the PFT because it's convenient, it's central, and it's easy to meet up with friends and classmates. Group study is a huge part of college life, and PFT is one of the best places for that. But when the building becomes overcrowded, students lose the very benefits that make the PFT so useful. By examining how long it takes to study places to fill and which floors fill the quickest, we hope to highlight where real improvements are needed. Our findings can help LSU make PFT a more efficient, student-friendly study environment. Ultimately, the goal is simple: reduce the time students spend searching for a spot and increase the time they spend actually learning.
Now we're going to get into the recommendations. If you're looking for a longer study period, maybe even more quiet, or you're looking for some assurance, I'd say more assurance in your study spot, I would avoid studying on the first floor atrium tables, plus or minus about an hour from lunch. You could also take an alternative study area, like the library, personal apartment dorm, or book a study room. Through our studies, we found that it was most likely to find any study spot, no matter the floor, around 2, because you are after the lunch rush, but you are before the evening rush of other people getting out of classes and continuing to stay at PFT to study before their SIs or before they leave. Just as before, we know that the higher floors are more likely to find a spot. That's what the longer fill times are from. Another recommendation that I personally had is that we could make an application or leave iPads at study tables where students, swipe their Tiger card or check into a spot and then check out of a spot, and maybe that application is linked around the university, and students are able to figure out before walking all through PFT, like let's say you believe that your second or third floor study table would be, you had that assurance. You said, okay, there's going to be a spot. It doesn't typically fill, but let's say it was filled and we didn't have the application, then you wasted your time walking up there, right? So yeah, that's another recommendation we have. For our references, I have my group mates and also randomly selected LSU students and faculty So some of the things we said was not, I'd say, the most to the book and textbook, but that's a lot of, this is a lot of more, this is in the community. You know, these study tables are for the students in the community, that they should have a say, or they should be aware of what's going on. And then for the team member contributions, each team member observed a different floor during the study and did their respective efforts on the project. Thank you.